Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike. Our second part, we just want to talk about the state of modern comic books. The first time we talked a little bit about continuity in canon, some of the troubles that they're having with that recently, and just our thought that maybe a loose continuity might be a little bit better for comics to go to, or maybe just finding a way where there's a little more entry points for folks. I think one of the things that sort of started me and Mike thinking about this is that quote from Stan Lee of every comic has the potential to be somebody's first comic. And
Yeah,
I think that's a hard thing the industry is struggling with now. What we wanted to kind of shift to here is to talk a bit about some of these imprints that have popped up. The Absolute Universe and the Ultimate Universe. I guess you could throw Ghost Machine in the mix there, although that's not dealing with legacy characters. So it's a nice little imprint, but I think we can kind of leave that to the side. But Absolute Universe and Ultimate Universe are kind of interesting in that I probably would not pick up a Martian Manhunter comic book if it was released in the main continuity. Just in that, while I love the character, there's so much that's happened to him. It's kind of hard to keep track, and I have no idea what they're going to keep up with and what's there. But you put the Absolute Universe on it, put a nice little shiny number one. It's a cool starting point, really easy book to pick up. I think Ultimate Universe, I am a huge Black Panther fan. The main title lost me on that. I just couldn't read it anymore. Ultimate came out. I have been reading that and loving that ever since because it picked up from an identifiable part for T'Challa. And so these kind of imprints, Mike, the Absolute Universe, the Ultimate Universe, obviously, look, part of their appeal is it is a small little lineup of books. It's typically 4 to 6 books. But do you think imprints like this are the future of comic books, where maybe Marvel and DC goes more this direction instead of trying so much to maintain that main timeline they have?
I would tell you it's my personal future for comics. I will tell you that for sure. And, my 16-year-old, he's 17 now. It's great for him too. Although he does delve into continuity madness, as I call it, with Spider-Man and stuff, because he struggles to, understand the entire story of Spider-Man. Although good luck with what's happening now these last 5 years. But
Yeah.
he loves all these characters like I do, of course. But these little offshoots, I think, have the potential to be the future of the company because your general reader, your general fan, maybe you're 10 or 12 years old and you've seen a dozen Marvel movies and half a dozen DC movies, and you watch the cartoons. You go into your comic book shop today and you try and buy a comic book of any one of your favorite heroes. You have a general understanding, and all these great ideas came from these great comic books.
Hmm.
So you go down to the comic shop. It's a special trip. Millions of kids wish they could go to the comic book store every day, but they can't. Parents take them maybe once a week, once a month, once a year, and you buy a comic book. And like Stan Lee said, every comic book is potentially some kid's first comic book. And if you buy your favorite superhero, you should be able to get a story that depicts the character as you recognize it, and you can move from there with your character into the story, and then you're hooked, and then you got a new generation of comic book buyers there,
Yeah.
and they'll convince dad to take them to the comic shop at least once a month, and that's good for business and it's good for everything, because even though I know they say that these are just idea farms for movies and video games, that's wonderful. But if it's going to survive, you've got to catch the younger readership, and you've got to have your writers and artists produce stories that new people can understand and relate to. And so, yes, I do think that these smaller offshoot titles are the way to go. I stopped buying, 2/3 of all the heroes that I like from comic books because I can't understand the continuity. It got too
Hmm.
weird. One by one, the books dropped off. And now I don't buy almost any of them. But I do pick up Absolute, and I do pick up the Marvel, the Ultimate one,
Ultimate.
because there's a character that I like. It's I can understand
It's
what's
easy
going
to
on.
jump in.
I can
Yeah.
jump in. I'm on board, and away I go.
Yeah, I think if they don't go the loose continuity approach of kind of having where there's just several key touch points with the character's life and then you put stuff in there, I think these offshoots have a chance. And where I think the publishing industry of comic books for the big two has got to change fundamentally in that there are just too many comic books out on the stands. And too many get canceled, too many don't last. I mean, they recently released a Weapon X-Men comic book with Wolverine, Deadpool, and Cable. It's been canceled in 5 issues, right? So before the trade even comes out, it's done. Deadpool can't keep an ongoing series. Deadpool's new series is ending at 15 issues. And I think what's happened is, and this has happened, and we bring up sports a lot, but this has happened in sports when the NFL had an idea of doing expansion a couple years ago, and they went from like 28 teams to 32 teams. This was probably like the mid 90s. And while initially it was okay for the league and exciting to get the markets in there, after a couple years, it kind of caught up to like maybe there's not enough talented players for 32 teams to actually be feasible, right? The NBA, I think, goes through this more than anything. Is that I think the NBA, there's just not enough good players to sustain 30 teams to be competitive, entertaining every night. And so you always have 10 to 12 teams that you know before the season starts, they have no chance to make the playoffs. They have no chance to win the championship. There's nothing happening with that. And I think if you would go, hey, if you took any sports league and went, instead of 30 teams, 15, the amount of talent that would be on those teams would be incredible. And I think comic books with the big two could do that. And then I think right now the problem is you'll have a great artist on an awful book because the writer's not great, or a great writer paired with an artist that's not amazing. Or you'll have a great book with a great writer and artist, but the artist can't keep a monthly schedule, and the backup artist isn't the main artist on any of the other 30 books because he's the backup artist. And so then you get like D tier quality art on an A tier book. And so I think if they did go to a much smaller Ultimate Universe, Absolute Universe kind of thing, the pool of talent that we seem to be lacking right now wouldn't be as big of an issue. I think
You
the
and
other
I,
part, go ahead, Mike.
we did a video about this a while ago
Mhm.
about how, X-Men should really be like 3 books, maybe 4.
Yeah. But no, and it's a lot more inviting for readers, like the Absolute Universe and the Ultimate Universe of you can go in and you can just, okay, I like Wonder Woman, I'm going to buy this and as a number one issue, and you can start from that point. I think the other thing too is it would also make it to where, as much as I think this would hurt comics, but I think it's in this place we're at now, it'd be better. The stakes when something happens that you don't like aren't as much because it's only messing up this one offshoot book
Yeah.
and it can be reset. So, like I point this out, like I did not enjoy that Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show. I don't like that they changed the way Spider-Man became Spider-Man. I don't like that they reversed that Uncle Ben's death didn't have anything to do with Pete. Like I didn't like any of that. But I kind of don't care as much because it's like, it's an offshoot thing. This isn't the main Peter Parker. Right. I know tons of people who are huge fans of characters based on small little imprints. My wife loves Wonder Woman as a character. I don't think she's ever read a Wonder Woman comic book. She just really loved those movies. And she liked that version of Wonder Woman. And so I think what it could do, and it doesn't, and like her interest doesn't translate to any other version. Like she has no interest in watching the DC cartoons with Wonder Woman. There are tons of people who are fans of the DC animated universe and love that version. They probably wouldn't. And so I think if you did these imprints, if they lasted long enough, 10 or 12 years, and you got creative teams who are invested, or 5 years even, I think you could kind of in the vein that we've seen stuff like Batman the animated series, you could get something that's just a hit. And
Yeah.
that's that continuity, and it doesn't become lesser or worse because it's a smaller thing. It just becomes, hey, I love that version of Batman. I love that version of Spider-Man. So I do think it could work. I think especially if you did less of them, I think the challenge would be because right now it's like 6 books for each line. It'd be really hard with how does Marvel go from 26 to 50 books to down to 7 or 8. But I think if they pared it down to maybe 10, 12 titles a month, a couple different, maybe you could even do an Ultimate Universe and a second universe in Marvel or something. I think you could really touch on something there because there's just too many comic books coming out. And I think the publishing industry really needs to look at. I know there's contracts and I'm sure there's all kinds of back end things that are there. But I'd say about 75% of Marvel comic books don't last more than 10 issues anymore. That's just not a sustainable model. And so I
Yeah,
think if they went to
I,
this approach, it might help a lot.
I really think so. I think if we pared everything down a little bit, especially, in DC doesn't have that many titles to begin with. Um, and I think when we talked about this before, we talked about, you know, you have, say, for Marvel, you have 3 X-Men books, you got 2 Spider-Man books, you've got uh, one book for everybody else, and the same formula for DC. Batman gets 2 or 3 books, and Superman gets 2 books, and one book for everybody else. Uh, and you could always have an open book every month, where Marvel used to do like what they used to call Marvel Team Up. And
Yep.
in those books, they would introduce new characters, or they would put 2 people together for, just one comic, or maybe, 2 or 3 issues. And the thing about it is, like you said, we're spread too thin, and comic books aren't selling. So why not take off the board a few comics that are selling, say less than 30,000 issues a month, and pool your talent and put those 30,000 sales to beef up another book. For
Yeah.
example, X-Men is the prime example. You had, what was it, 13, 15 X-Men titles launch, and
Yeah.
you probably only needed 3, maybe 4,
I
and
think we're
all
down to 4 or 5 books that have actually survived. Yeah, at this
the
point.
other 10 books you just don't even do, and you put your best art on those 4 books, and you bet you those sales would go up by all the.
Well, and I think if you did an absolute universe and ultimate universe too, you could kind of I think if you just kind of went with these offshoot universes, you could also create in different stories that make it a little more rewarding for the you could do an offshoot X-Men universe that lasts 5 or 10 years where maybe Wolverine finally did get Jean Grey and he did
Yeah,
get to marry in that universe and you could have hey okay but that's only 5 so for your Cyclops fans who are mad hey for a couple years that book's maybe not what you want to read but maybe in that same universe you have hey Cyclops got with Emma Frost or whatever right
right.
you could take some of those more wild swings and the stakes aren't as big because like right now if they do something where and this is like the biggest problem I have with X-Men. It's so hard to get past Krakoa because it's like you dirtied the legacy of all of the X-Men by having them kill. It almost retroactively even hurts those older books. Whereas
Yeah,
if that wasn't just if Krakoa had just been, hey, it's the Krakoa timeline spin-off book, then it doesn't ruin the main thing. And if you knew, hey, this Krakoa thing's only 5 to 10 years, and then we're going to start over and we're going to have the X-Men from day one again, it might help. I think it is going to be the future. I think because they just have to keep up with manga. And I know people want to say they're different things. It's stories in written and with pictures in a comic book form. It is your competition. You have to find a way. And I think if you can do that, where hey, you want to read Batman, here's Absolute Batman. That's volume 1. And 6 months from now, there's volume 2, and it's really easy. And you don't have to track down 978 issues and 12 different spin-offs and 6 different events that are happening. And well, that Robin and that issue is from another book, from another. Like, I think if you just cleaned it up, if you don't do the simplified continuity with like the key touch points, then I think this is a good alternative as well. And I think we're seeing it work with stuff like Black Panther, Ultimate Spider-Man. I think there's a lot of interest in Absolute Batman. And while my preference would be that they didn't break the main continuity so much, I wish it was still where
don't
canon and
forget about
continuity
Absolute Flash.
Absolute Flash, right? I think I wish they had been able to keep it, but I get it. The weight of 80 years of storytelling, events, one-upism, it finally, I think, has gotten comics to the point that we probably do need to go to one of these 2 options, either a loose continuity like the Bond films had, or maybe an absolute universe kind of spin-off thing. And then, hey, it's 5 to 10 years, and then hey, we start over and someone else gets their vision of it. But let us know. What do you guys think below? Do you think the future of the comic books is based in stuff like Absolute Universe and Ultimate Universe, or would that dry up your interest altogether? Would that be the push that you need to stop reading, or would it get you into more books? As always, folks, let us know what you think. Mike, go ahead, sir.
And don't forget, like DC kind of tried this with the New 52.
Mhm. No,
And this will be like a new 52
I think the big thing with the 52, just a quick tangent on that, like I think the biggest thing is I think the new 52 would have worked had they truly done what they said they were going to do. The new 52, I think, failed because they couldn't pull the trigger to
quite
just make
committed.
it day one.
I
It
know.
was like we're gonna do this and everybody's younger, but we still want Nightwing and we still want Red Hood and we still want
Yeah,
Tim Drake and we still want Damian. And it's
yeah.
like that doesn't make sense for a young Batman to have four Robins.
But it was a good first attempt, and
Yeah,
you
I
don't get
think.
anywhere without making mistakes. You don't get
Well, and I
anywhere.
think if the new 52 had just been, hey, this is supposed to be a 5-year experiment, and then it's
Yeah.
going to end and we're going to spin off into a new one. I think even readers who get really mad about things, if you only knew, hey, this is just a short time, then they can rectify what went wrong. It might bring some folks back. Let us know as always, though. What do you guys think below? Thank you so much for watching. God bless you, and we'll catch you in our next video.
Thanks, everybody.